Hello. Okay. So I want to explain a few things. Here's what I mean by optimize settings. I mean optimize as in like it's playable at a good frame rate. It's smooth, no stutterings, and it has to look good. If optimize means the most frame rates that you can get, then just turn everything to low and the game will look horrible, but you will get as much frame rates as your GPU or CPU can process it up. Okay, so let's take a look at some settings. And there's a few settings that you can't change, and I won't be able to show you the differences, but it's alright. Okay, so first thing we're gonna look at is at image quality. You can set this to low. That is like the overall rendering of the game. But, you know, we're not gonna use that. Texture quality, I set to full. I don't use the high resolution texture pack because I don't have 8 gigs of RAM. If you have 8 gigs or more, you should use that. It does look really, really good. In this case, like this dragon wing, kind of, look at that. What the hell? That's terrible. But the high resolution texture pack fixes that. Okay, so this game I'm playing I'm recording it at 4K, but my monitor is actually just 1080p, 165 Hz with G-Sync, so I don't have to turn on V-Sync. I use FidelityFX, and I play on full screen. That's optional. You can really play however you wish, but these are my settings, and I'm gonna show you why I do this. Okay, so let's take a look at each of these settings first. So we'll look at ambient occlusion. I want to take a look right here at this little barrel. I'm sure it has some ambient occlusion, right? Okay, so if I set the ambient occlusion to off, just take a look on the right. I'm so sorry that if you can't see anything, you know, hold on, give me 1 second. Let me just move the overlay to the bottom left. There we go. Nice. No. Okay, cool. So now we have some more space around. We can kind of see the world around them. So as I increase, or like let's say from off to low, you can see that these objects around, they all cast their own shadows, like their own nooks and crannies have their own shadows. That's what ambient occlusion does. It gives you shadows for nooks and crannies. So when you set it to low, it just turns everything on. And then when you set it to more, mid to high, what it does is just makes the resolution of the ambient occlusion, ambient occluded shadows much higher. Yeah. So if you turn it off, it looks a little dull, but they seem to ruin everything. They seem to ruin all of the other shadows around it. Also, you can see, great. Curse you, son. Okay, you can. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can kind of see the brassiere or this fire thing right at the bottom. If I set it to off, it looks pretty good, but if I set it to low, suddenly it's so pixelated. I set it to mid, looks pretty good, and then high, it looks really, really nice. It looks super sharp. So I set mine to high. You can see if I set it to off, I get 101 frames. Just looking at this distance, 103. Then I set it to high, I lose quite a lot. I lose, yeah, like 7 frames. But I think it's worth it. You can set it to medium. You still get 100 frames. Right, but it's not as sharp, and I think the visual difference kind of makes it a lot better. And you don't get what they call Peter panning. You can see underneath the box, they've got this like thin line of light coming through as if nothing's connected to it. But now it's completely gone, so you don't get to see those kind of things. I don't like seeing that kind of thing, so I just set it to high. It's a high cost. Maybe you want to set it to medium. If you can't hit the target frame rate that you're looking for, I'm looking for 60 FPS, so it really doesn't matter to me. I'm getting 90 now. It's alright. So volume rendering quality, I've got it to low. Now, if I set it to off, everything else in the town, take a look on the right side of the screen. Everything else becomes so much clearer. People love this. Like, wow, look at that. That's a big thing. Big shaft. Let's turn it on. Uh-oh. Now that shaft is clouded by the volumetric rendering quality. So if I increase the quality to higher, I lose frame rates. So now I'm at 90, 92. If I set it to highest, now I'm at 80, 87, 89. I set it to variable. You can see nothing is changing essentially. But yeah, if I set it to off, I get pretty big gains. So I just set it to low because I don't see a difference, you know, between low and highest. And I still get the fog effect. I like the fog effect. Some people don't like it, but I think it adds depth to a game. Case in point, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Without the fog, the whole place looks so small. And you know, you want this to be Monster Hunter World, not Monster Hunter Town. What? Alright, Capsule AO. Here's what I think about these things. Anything that has on or off, they're kind of like the things that, you know, they don't make a big difference to the visuals, unlike volume rendering or ambient occlusion. Oh, did I just skip shadow quality? Anyway, I'll just explain a few of these. So, it says enable disable shadows created by a player character or walls. Take a look at defeat by the words. If I turn it off, there's no shadows. But when I turn it on, you see the shadows get a lot darker beneath the character, right? I bet you if I stood next to a wall, it will also darken next to the wall. So I don't lose a lot of frame rates, right? If I set it to off, I get 98. If I set it to on, I get 94. Holy shit, that's 4 frames just for a shadow on the bottom? That's unreal. What? That is crazy. Yeah, what the hell? I should turn this off. Why did I have it on? God. It makes no difference. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I think this looks pretty good. Although this looks a little bit better, but it's not worth it. But yeah, just keep in mind, if you change something, you have to know what it changes, so when you're playing, you can keep an eye out for it. If it bothers you, you know what to change. If you just, you know, change it without seeing any difference, just keep it on. I see a frame rate difference here, so I'm gonna put it off. If I put it on here. What? I actually get like only two frames. Yeah, what the hell? So, not much. 2 frames. Yeah, sometimes more frames. I guess it depends on the closer I am to stuff. So contact shadows is detailed face shadowing for your player characters. You know, if I turn it off, 76. If I turn it on, it's 76. Yeah, so they don't really change anything. Anyway, let's go back to shadow quality. So we get to see the rendering of the shadows, you know. They don't let you remove shadows outright because the game would look horrible. Alright, so we'll take a look at this signboard right here. If I set it to low, it's a little blurry, but you know, there's shadows on it. If I set it to mid, it's a bit more, you know. Man, I'm saying way too much. It's a little bit, you can see the details in the shadows, and then it eventually gets really, really sharp. Right? And this works like really far out too. Right? So I set it to low, I set it to high. Here you go. Let's take a look at that building over there. What does it change? Let us see. So low, medium, and then high. I kind of like how it looks, so I'll set it to high. It doesn't seem to take a lot of my frame rate, so anyway, I should speed this up. I don't want this video to take 2 hours. Okay, anti-aliasing. Now this is a hard one. So if I turn it off, you can see all the jaggies basically everywhere on top of that spike on this building. And then if I turn on TAA, it's less. If I turn on FXAA, it becomes a lot smoother. And if I turn on both, whoa, it just darkens the area out. No, some thin objects, they actually get more detail. Yeah, so you probably want TAA and FXA. But on FXA, I get 73, 72. If I have this, it's 71, 72. So yeah, not that much of a difference. You can just go for this. LOD bias, you can set it to however you wish. LOD does make a big difference, but I feel like the difference in frame rate is worth the cost of the visuals that you get. So take a look at these things right here. If I set it to low, that box looks like crap. No, it still looks like a box. It's alright. Right, if I set it to mid, that box looks a bit better. You can see out in the distance. You can see on the top there. Further objects will have more LOD. LOD is like the polygons surrounding an object. So the further you are, the smaller the less the polygons get, so that you can save up on resources. Right, so if you set it to high, it's just gonna show you the highest like amount of polygons or something like that. So you can see the quality of the trees get much better when I set it to high as compared to mid. We already know low looks absolutely horrible, so we're not gonna use that. You lose a lot of these details around. You see the icicles on the roof. So if you really wanted to save, I don't know, how many FPS? Like 4, 5? If you really wanted to save 4 FPS, then yeah, set this one to medium. But I think the visuals, you know, it outweighs. Everything looks so much better. So max LOD level is how much. I'll just show you. So if I set it to -1, a few of the objects, even at like high LOD, they just get a little shitty. It's not that big of a difference, but yeah, they do get a little shitty. So I just set it to no limit. It doesn't change the FPS that much. Alright, foliage sway. This is something you want always on. Where are the trees or the bushes? Yeah, great. You can see that bushes, if I turn it on right here, them shaking. If I turn it off, they're not. This world ain't lively no more without them bushes moving. So we're gonna keep that on because it gives you 1 FPS. Really, is it worth 1 FPS? 1 FPS, you get to see the bush move. Just to spend that. Okay, subsurface scattering. This is quality rendering on the skin. Just turn it on. It doesn't drop your frame rate like crazy if you turn it on, so just turn it on. Screen space reflection, that is like reflection. You can see there's water over here and it's reflecting the sky above. Now, here's a cool thing about screen space reflection. They really mean screen space reflection. It only reflects what you see on your screen. So if I set it to off and I look down on the ground, it's like, oh, that's not much of a difference, right? And then when I look sideways, it's like, oh, okay, that's all right. But I don't know there's puddles, small puddles of melted snow on the ground. So if I turn it on, I get to see, you're like, oh wow, there's reflections from the puddles. Where's that reflection coming from? It's actually coming from your screen. I'm getting more light on the top half of my screen above the VRAM usage sign than I am on the bottom. So it's actually effectively just replicating that on the reflective area. So it takes whatever your screen is reflecting, flip it, and then you have it. So now as that bright parts are gone, so does the reflection in the puddles. Now if you've ever seen a puddle in your life, the closer you go to it, it doesn't just disappear like that, right? It doesn't just like stop reflecting. In fact, you'll see the sun or the sky even more at an angle like this. So it was only reflecting our screen space, so that's why we have it. So we want this because it doesn't take a lot of frames. Come on. Oh, 4? Yeah. But come on, man. come on, man. Damn, come on, man. All right. Anyway, I made my point. Anisotropic filtering. So, anisotropic filtering is the... Let me go back a little bit. I'm gonna just walk right here. Now, take a look at the distances. Now, if I go here, anisotropic filtering, take a look at that guy walking right here. And then I set it to off. You can see we lose a bunch of quality in the texture. It looks blurry. It's not as sharp. Now, if I increase it, you can see from off to low. You can see like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see the textures going on. And if I set to mid, if I set to high, you actually get diminishing returns, but they don't really take a lot of FPS like these things. A lot of people just set it at highest. But I'm looking at the rocks out in the distance, because I think after that distance, I probably won't be able to notice any fine detail. So if I set it to low, you can see there's an effect like the pebbles are gone or something like that. Or it's some texture that isn't being loaded, so it just becomes like one flat thing. So it's not as clear. And this is more apparent if you play it at higher resolutions, which I will eventually. I've set it to high because I don't see a difference between high and highest. I just set it to high. Water reflections, that's reflections on the water. Snow quality, I set snow quality to mid because the difference between mid and high isn't that much, and high takes a lot. So what it does is the quality of the snow that you walk on right here. Right, so you can see I've got like this little candy cane shape, or a J, a big J. Oh, a big J. That's perfect for me to smoke. So we can see our snow, but if I set it to high, you can see the snow kind of change a little bit. It becomes much more clear. Oh great, the snow's closing up. God damn it. The game does that? So yeah, if you set it to mid, they close up faster. If you set it to low, it look the way your character walk on the snow kind of affects that too. So I don't really pay attention to the snow that much, and it tanks my frames if I set it to high as I walk around, so I don't want that. SH diffuse quality. I don't know what SH is. Probably some shit. Well, let's turn it off. Let's set it to low. Now, whoa, you can't really see that much of a difference right here. I'm not so sure why. Oh, no. Maybe I'll go a little bit further. Take a look at that bushes right there with the that brazier, whatever that is, that thing they set on fire for light. So if I set it to, what the fuck? Okay, we'll take a look at that a little later. Okay, next settings. Sorry. Depth of field. Okay, anything else underneath here? We don't really have to pay too much attention. Dynamic range. Digital Foundry found that 64-bit just makes your game run harder, and the effects doesn't even matter. Like, you get some fine details, but it's not worth it. Motion blur. If you like the blurring, you can have it. If you don't like to see like things around it, if you're playing at 30 FPS, use motion blur, please. You're gonna need it. Depth of field, that is like, you see the wings? Now the wings are clear. Now there's depth of field. Really, it just depends if you want it or not, but I think sometimes when you get too close to a rock fighting a monster, it obscures your vision. I don't like that. Vignette effects, if you want the vignetting around the game, right? I don't really like it. Yeah, no, just give me the game. Z pre-pass. This is weird. If I set it to off, 80 FPS. If I set it to on, 25. Now this is weird. I thought, like when I tested this before, if I set it to on, I get more frames. Anyway, that's changeable. I'll just turn it off right now. Yes. Okay, cool. Let's go into the game. Look at the snow. That's not too bad. It still looks pretty good. Mid still looks pretty good, despite what people say. Right, so now we know how the graphics work, what changes, and what looks good and doesn't take a lot of resources. Right? It's exactly what I put. That's the one that I found best. It still looks okay and it doesn't take a shit ton of frames. The cost isn't that high. And you still get a pretty good looking display, right? Booyah. Alright, take a look at all these wonderful bushes and all these trees. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little... yeah, I'm getting a little sleepy. Okay, check out these, you see these bushes? Wow, fucking hell. That hurts my eye. Everything else looks sharp, right? Everything else looks sharp. And you turn and look at that bushes as you're moving around, you're like, oh my god, shaft grenade. What the hell? So if you set it to high, it does that. I don't know what SH is, but yeah, you want to set it to high. Medium is okay, but there's still shimmering around it and it bothers me, so I set it to high. Just gets rid of that thing whenever it happens, right? Okay, cool. So now I've showed you all that and I've wasted your freaking precious time. Let's just cut to the chase, shall we? Let's return to Expedition. So here's what I want to show you. The game looks pretty good so far. These are my settings. Actually, I don't play at 1440p. I play at a higher frame rate, actually. No, sorry, not frame rate, a higher resolution. So I'm gonna go return to title, and then we're gonna change this to default setting. Let's see what high looks like. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna change the settings. We already went through the settings. You can kind of try it on your own. It really only takes, 10 minutes at the most if you go and make a drink, get a snack while you're waiting for the game to start up, right? So not that much time. So I'm gonna set it to 1080p, no FidelityFX, and then I'm gonna go image quality high, right? So everything else is the same. The only difference is it's not at a higher resolution, and it's my native screen resolution with no FidelityFX at all. So let's restart the game and then we'll get back into 8. Now, here's a good time to, I don't know, get a drink, play some tunes. I'm gonna drink some water. Thank you for waiting. Alright. So now we're starting the game. This is 1080p. Now take a look to the right side. Everything looks a lot sharper, a little crisper, right? Okay, that's alright. Let's start the game. Our character looks surprisingly more shimmery and a little blurry at some points. Like the textures, they're kind of blurry. But you can see there is a lot of shimmer going on anyway. Doesn't bother me that much. Not yet, at least. So when I mean optimize, I mean without any of these like shimmer or anything like that. Alright. So in motion, the game looks pretty good. Albeit a bit blur. Right? It doesn't look as sharp. And it's a little bit blurrier. But other than that, I think pretty good. Not a lot of jaggies, but you could tell, like as I'm walking through here, There are jaggies. The game is just trying its best. The anti-aliasing is doing its very damned best to make sure that you don't get to see nothing. Right, but you could still tell there are some blur artifacts, like a little shimmery light around a few objects and stuff like that. Right, so I'm doing the walkthrough here. Pretty good. Yeah, so far so good. I'm getting 80 FPS, so basically pretty much what I got just now without FidelityFX. So if you didn't notice any difference, like, okay, look at that tree out in the distance as I'm walking. It's a little shimmery. The branches are thin, and then it's starting to, you know, I don't know what they call it, but it's starting to do that. Why is it doing that? Anyway, we're back here. That's pretty cool. Overall, what I see it's a little bit shimmery, and I see it's a little bit more blur also when I'm moving objects. Bright objects, they kind of like, you know, they pop, they go pop, 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 pop as you're moving. If that makes any sense. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. Right? Okay, do I still have motion blur turned on? Just in case. I may be a fucking fool. Okay, no, it's pretty much the same settings. Right. So, here's what I mean. If I turn it off, you can see... You see all that jaggedy going on? Yeah, TAA and FXAA really is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. So, this is what I mean by resolution, rendering resolution quality. This is essentially native. This is less than native, and then this is low. So, what FidelityFX does is it chooses this one and then it upscales it, right? It doesn't actually play it native. Okay, cool. So now we've got that. Let's return to the title. I'll do another walk around. And now I'm gonna set the game to 4000 Ks, 4000 Kelvins. I don't play the game at 4K because it really tanks the shit out of my frame, so, but I'll just do it to show you. It also gave me stutters because my VRAM is completely gone. But you know what? Maybe just for show. And then I'll show you later what I play at. I don't play at 1800p because I drop below 60 frequently. Sometimes even down to 45. But that might have been like the Z pre-pass thing. I'm not so sure just yet. Right, and I apologize if this video is way too long. I'll do a quick recap at the end of it, so you know, you could just skip if you really don't want to know all the bullshit. You know, everything about how the graphics work. Right, so the game is now rendering at 4K, and boy oh boy, it's seriously it's fucking killing. I'm at the main menu. I'm not even gonna go into the game actually. So I'll just turn this on. I got this upscaling turned right on, full screen. Let's rock. Okay, cool. So it didn't do much in the menu. Maybe I get a few more frames. So I turn on the upscaling, so I'm not actually playing at 4K. I'm playing at less than 4K, and then it upscales it to 4K. Right? That's what the FidelityFX does. And if you're playing on a 1080p screen, you're probably thinking, why? There's no point in playing the game in 4K if your monitor can't play in 4K. Yeah, take a look at this, idiot. Look at how sharp everything is. Not a single jaggy. And not only that, the textures are much sharper. The whole game look much sharper. I'm moving. It's not worth the you know, I like 60 FPS. I don't want to play this game at 30 FPS like some plebeian, but the game does look really good, and I bet with a high resolution texture pack, oh boy, 4K, damn. So what I usually do is when I play games and I get more than my target frame rate, like let's say 120, I wanna hit that, or 60. Like in Far Cry 5, I set the resolution scale to 1.3. Unfortunately, this game does not have added resolution scale, so I have to force it using the in-game resolution. So using fidelity, I can get acceptable frame rates. My fucking GPU is screaming, dude. Look at that, hotspot at 111 Celsius. This is bad. But yeah, take a look at that tree. It used to be shimmering, and now it's not. At least it's not shimmery as much, right? So that's what I mean. So is 30 FPS drop much better? Is 30 FPS drop worth the high resolution everything? How do I where's my... Oh, there it is. Fuck yeah. Oh god. Sheep brown. Why did I make this? Yes. Look at the stat. Oh, he's gone. He just left. Anyway. Right. So the game does look sharper. It looks nicer. It looks smoother. Right? If you ever watched a 4K YouTube video on your 1080p screen and you're complaining, why do I have to play at 4K if I'm only on 1080? That's why, dude. That's why. Everything looks sharper. Everything is rendered much sharper. Everything looks smooth and looks great. So, this is obviously not working. This is really stupid. I don't want to play the game at 40 FPS with my GPU screaming, heating up the left side of my leg. So, you just test. You try and see what you get. For me, 1440 with FidelityFX, I'm basically playing 1080, right? I'm playing 1080, but like upscaled to 1440. But I find that 1728 is pretty good. It doesn't shimmer as much, and I'm probably somewhere in between 1080p and 1440, so I get around 1.3 times the resolution that I usually play on. So game looks good, and no shimmering, and I get pretty good frame rates, exactly what I'm targeting for, so 60. Back then, and I can remember one game that did this. I don't see a lot of games with this sort of anti-aliasing. It used to be multi-sample anti-aliasing, MSAA. So what it did was it multi-sampled the resolution that you had, or whatever, something like that. So you could go 4 times, 8 times, no, like 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, and the higher you go, the more it would tank your frame rate. So most of the time people would just play at 2 times or 4 times. So Metro Last Light? No, the first Metro 2077, yeah, that's the one. So that Metro had MSA, and if you set it to like 8 times or 16 times, you're basically rendering the game at 4K, and it looked like really smooth, but it was still in 1080p. But if you played natively 1080p, it's quite jaggedy. Right, okay, so now I'm at that frame rate that I set in. You can see the higher you go, the returns are diminishing. So at 1440 native resolution using upscale FidelityFX, you get pretty good results, way better than 1080p, right? Or essentially it's like 1080p plus, because you are rendering at 1080p plus the added fidelity effects on top of it, right? So for me, this is acceptable. This looks pretty good. Not a lot of shimmery lights and stuff like that. The textures look quite sharp. That tree out in the distance isn't shimmering as much as 1080p is or 1440p is, so I'd say this is pretty good. And I'm hitting 55 FPS. That's not too bad, right? So I'd say that is pretty good. So the next thing you want to do once you find what your graphics setting is, you should go ahead and just cap your frame rate. This will stop any stuttering. If you go over your VRAM, you're gonna stutter also, so just be wary of that. So I hope you can see it, but I'm gonna cap my frame rate. My maximum frames will be 60. So now I won't go higher than 60. I'm just using this program to cap it. I don't use the in-game one. Yeah. So now when I'm running around this place, everything's smooth. I don't notice any stutters. Even though my frame time, you know, it's like it's dropping, but it's not dropping as much, or it remains quite consistent. Right? So I've got that. So once I get my GPU all maxed out, my GPU is still screaming though. I think there's gotta be a way to solve that. I think 1440p was the good spot for my GPU, so maybe I just go back to that. If I'm playing at this resolution, oh, it's kind of taxing for me, so I might drop a few things. So once you find what changes for your graphics, or you know, once you understand what changes the graphics and you adjust it to what you want, the two main things that you should do is resolution. If you want more FPS, you should try that first rather than dropping things in the graphics settings. And it's completely okay, like, to play at a lower resolution with an upscaled with like upscaling or whatever. It's fine as long as it looks good. I'm going for the sharpest visually, right? So it looks pretty nice as I'm playing this game, because it's a single player game or multiplayer. My friends don't play this no more. I'm gonna kill this little freaking creature. Yeah. I'm going to kill the little skunk. Oh, he dodged it. This skunk is fucking crazy, hermano. Right. So that's what I be saying. That's how I optimize it. I get the best graphics that I can out of this. And then I try and get the best frame rate. That's basically what I try. Try and get the best graphics out of it without completely fucking up my computer. And then the best frame rate. So I go graphics setting at native, adjust everything, and then I will adjust the resolution, increase it if I'm, you know, if I'm at like 80, 90 and the game doesn't need me to play it so fast. It's not like a first-person shooter. It's like a third-person game. I just try to go for 60. Yeah, okay. So here's the gist of it, and I'm so sorry that this video is so long and so fucking hectic, because I don't know how to edit. Especially in 4K, my little i3 is gonna explode. So here's what I did. No, I should go back into the menu, I'm sorry. Let's return the title. So here's the gist of it. You can screenshot the settings that I use. I'll try to timestamp everything in the description, so it's much easier. If you have sponsor block, I can apply, you know, fillers to sections where it doesn't, you know, like waiting and stuff like that, or like bullshit that I'm talking about. I could just get rid of it. Yeah, try out sponsor block. Okay, so the resolution I set to is 1440, even though I'm playing at 1080p. The reason why is I render at 1080p, but I upscale it to 1440p. Thus, I get a much sharper image. Yeah, and it looks pretty good. So that's why I use the upscaling. If I don't, it looks a little blurry, but it's not unacceptable. But it's just that at no cost, you're at 80 FPS at 1080p. You will be at 80 FPS at 1440p with upscaling. Okay, I don't use DirectX 12. I don't see any reason why, and previous experiences with other game makes my frame times completely jittery, so the X12 is stable. I use that. Here are my settings. You can't change image quality if you're using FidelityFX, so don't worry about that. Texture quality, I set it to as much as my VRAM can go. I have 6 gigs, so I go full. If you have 8 gigs or more, you can go ahead and use the high resolution texture pack. Ambient occlusion, I set it to high because I like how it looks. It does take frames off of your game, so maybe set it to mid if you don't really care, or if you need some more frames. Volume rendering quality, if you set it to off, the game looks really nice and really clear, but I like the volume rendering because the world looks so much bigger. Shadow, sorry, I should explain what I meant by that. But if you watch the video, you would already know. Anyways, fuck it, I'll skip it. Shadow quality, I set it to high. I forgot what it did. I don't know if it's like more shadows or if it's the sharpness of shadows. I think it's the sharpness of shadows. I like really sharp shadows. You can set it to mid. It doesn't take, it's not that much of a difference. But like it's noticeable enough for me. Capsule AO on, anything that has an on or off switch, I usually just set it to on. Unless I don't want it, then I set it to off. Anti-Aliasing, TAA and FXAA is pretty good. It doesn't take up a lot of resources, so just use that. If you're gonna use TAA or FXAA by itself, just use both of them. It's like the same thing, but it looks better. LOD Bias, I set it to high. We saw what it can do. Max LOD, no limit. You want Foliage Sway because it makes the game look gamey. You know, it makes the world look world. Subsurface Scattering, I don't know what that does. I set it on. Screen space reflection, background reflection. Yeah, definitely want that. We saw the puddle of water. Anisotropic filtering, you want that road to look anisotropicized. Water reflection, turn it on. I didn't look into it in this game, just turn it on. It doesn't take a lot of graphics. Snow quality, set it to mid. High will eat up quite a lot, but not as much as volumetric rendering. SH diffuse quality is like some vegetation. They have like this blurring effect to it. If you set it to high, it kind of disappears. So yeah, set it to high, it looks pretty good. Dynamic range, don't mess with that. It doesn't do anything. I mean, it does, but if you don't have HDR, don't mess with it. I don't the motion blur. If you like it, turn it on. If you don't like it, turn it off. If you're playing at 30 FPS, turn it on. Depth of field, I don't like it, so I turned it off. It's just the depth of field between far objects and close objects. You know, just like what every human has. I see it every day. What? This is a fantasy game. In my fantasies, I don't have depth of field. Vignette Effects. Vignette Effects sucks. I don't use it. Z prepass. I thought turning them turning them on would give me more frames. But yeah, I guess not. I'm not so sure. You can test it out in game. So yeah, go ahead, give it a try. Right. That's pretty much it for the video. Oh, and here is the screenshot. It's full, high, low, high, on, TAA+FXAA, high, no limit, on, and then all the way down, subsurface, on, high, on, mid, high, 32-bit, off, on. Right. I just keep Z prepass on. I think it works. I don't know. If it doesn't, I'll turn it off. You're new it in game. Why are you complaining to me? Okay, so that's it. This is Iceborne Optimized Setting 2023. Surprisingly long, but hopefully I informed you of everything wrong. So yeah, if you play another game, fucking Star Rail, some stupid shit like that, 2 times the resolution, you'd fucking flip. You'd see like, oh my god, how does Herta look so real? How does it? Oh. Yeah. Alright, thanks for watching. See, game must be restarted to reflect changes. Oh yeah, right. Let's fucking restart. Bye bye.